Hey everyone, welcome to the Not a Lonely Coffee Break podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Maddie.
And I'm Megan. We're a podcast about coffee and work, but make it queer.
I know you and we talked about the many joys of job searching.
Ugh. Yes, so joyful.
So, listeners, if you've ever applied for a job and you felt like your resume sort of disappeared into the abyss or the mysterious black hole and you're like, what happened? Know that you're not alone. Somewhere out there, there's a digital pile of also mine and Megan's
Hopefully they're all
resume,
together.
wondering why we weren't good enough. But yeah, honestly, most of us have probably been victimized by an online application at least once,
At
at
least.
least one time, if not more.
And if it hasn't happened to you, tell me how.
Yes, please give us your tips.
Yeah, it is super frustrating. We talked about it last time. It's so tedious. And, honestly, the job searching, it's exhausting. It's confusing, and it's definitely lacking that personal touch that I have grown up with where, needing that human contact, even if it's a Zoom or something. There's so much advice everywhere. You go to LinkedIn or the Glassdoor or like all sorts of like sites, and it's just a lot. And now, employers, especially those big ones paying really good money, are using algorithms and AI to sift through all these resumes that they're getting and applications and whatever. And it's just really hard to get to know what works, and what sounds good and what will get you that one click to get you that interview.
Yeah, no, I was even just thinking, like, remember when it was as simple as like just send in your resume? But like now it's like you have to send in your resume and a cover letter.
Mhm.
And also you have to refill out this application form with all of your information on your resume. Like I literally am just copying and pasting. Like this is
Yes.
on my resume. Why am I putting it into your system? It's for the algorithm is what it feels like. So they can use their AI software to read my resume that they could have just downloaded from the PDF that I sent them or uploaded into their system.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's frustrating. But today we're going to be digging into those real mechanics of hiring, what's actually happening behind the scenes, maybe a little bit of what those misunderstandings are from candidates, and how we can approach the job search in a way that feels both strategic and sustainable. Because we all want that, right?
I hope so. Honestly, I'm sick of wasting time.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yes, it's like all these people I've been applying to never get back to me, or I just don't hear from them for months. That's a lot of time. But hooray, we have a guest that's
What?
gonna help us. Finally, today we have Taylor Elder. She is the founder of OptimizedCV, a platform designed to help candidates tailor factual resumes quickly and effectively. Taylor has a background in industrial organization psychology and has worked directly in candidate engagement, recruitment process design, job analysis, and interview development. So if she don't have the answers, guys, we're in trouble. Taylor has built hiring systems, helped to design screening processes, and also navigated the job search personally, which gives them a really unique full spectrum view of how today's jobs market actually functions, which is really the hot secret, right? And so I'm so excited.
Welcome to the show, Taylor. We're so excited to have you. You are our first guest of season 2.
Yay!
So if we had a little plaque, we would give that to you.
There's one in my head. I feel
But
it.
Megan and I kind of shared a little bit about your from your bio, but can you go ahead and tell us a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, so my name's Taylor. I grew up in Ohio, so cold, miserable part of the Midwest, but went to Ohio State for college and then later went to Adler University for my master's in industrial organizational psychology. Really interested in how to make the hiring process better for everyone, both for the organization and its systems as well as individuals. I have been on the hiring side. I've been on the job seeker side recently. And so it was very eye opening. And so it's become more of a passion for me as well. And I'm also a co founder of OptimizedCV, where we're trying to make the resume part the easiest part, because at the end of the day, your experience is your truth and that it doesn't really change too much. So it shouldn't take so much time. And so you should
Mhm.
be able to focus on some of those downstream things like interviews, offers, and perfecting that part of your, job search experience.
I love that so
Yeah.
much. Also, my wife is gonna get really jealous that you went to Ohio State. She's a big fan.
Oh, good, good.
She is a big fan
Oh,
for the
yay.
Ohio State University.
Go Bucks.
Mhm.
So she'll be very excited that, we had an alum on the show.
I appreciate it.
But you do bring kind of a really interesting perspective because just like you've said, you've worked in the hiring systems and then you've also navigated it on the seeker side.
Mhm.
So how does your background in industrial organizational psychology shape how you think of today's job search process?
It's interesting because when I was getting my master's, there was a decision on, do I want to just focus specifically on HR or do I want to go on the IO psychology route? And I wanted to do more of the IO psychology because you start to understand how things work in the background,
Mhm.
organizations, how they function, their structures, things like that that you might not. I think HR obviously talks about that, but they're kind of focused more on the actual procedural parts within
Mm.
hiring and within just being able to make a company run, organization run. So it's really interesting when you see it from that perspective in a job search because you can understand behind the scenes what's happening and can reverse engineer that whole process. And that's been my approach when I was doing my own job search. Of it took 3 months for me to get a position, but really at first it was just that mass apply, and it usually doesn't work because you have to tweak it here and there. And
Yeah.
so when you're thinking of it more systematically, I think that you're at an advantage compared to some of the candidates that are just applying to whatever and hoping for the best.
Yeah. No, and the insider knowledge is so valuable. I think about it from my side, where I'm just going to use any job site I can find and click on anything I can see and here eat up my resume, tell me what I can have, and it's just
Mm.
always like that. I just want to make sure I'm putting in the right stuff and it just seems mysterious, arbitrary. What do you think is the biggest disconnect that you notice between job seekers thinking hiring works and how it actually works?
I post about this all the time on my LinkedIn because I'm like, this makes me very frustrated now because I've
Mhm.
seen it. And I think the biggest disconnect is there is an expectation from the hiring side. But when you think about it, HR represents an organization, a company, or whatever it is.
Mm.
So there's not like a person who's actually required to give you that knowledge, or it's their job to give you that knowledge. They're going to make sure that the company is finding the best candidates. And it's not anything against the job seeker. It's just at the end of the day, that's your focus. But that's kind of where I think the disconnect is. And when you're a job seeker, you're going in saying, okay, this is what I've done. And that's kind of been accepted for the longest time, especially if you're an older individual who is in the you know, job seeking now. Like if you're maybe, let's say, 30 to 40. Not saying 30, like I'm 30, so I'm not saying that. But when you think about like 40-year-old, there's a protected group. If you're 40 and older, you're within this
Mhm.
protected group. And so when you look at they've been in the job for a certain amount of time, and then they're now entering into a new market that's completely changed, new technologies, things like that, you're not informed on what you should be doing. So it's very
Mhm.
common to say, well, this is what I do. And it's like, that's great, but that's not what recruiters and hiring managers are looking for today. They're looking for, okay, great. What did you do? Why was it important? And how did you do it? And being able to show that impact through numbers or any other, qualitative data. I just think that it's the biggest disconnect that I'm seeing, even when you start at the resume part, because that's kind of where you get stuck
Mhm.
at today for a lot of people. And so if you can't get that part down, it's a lot harder for you to even get into that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
for sure.
That makes so much sense too because I've even when I'm revamping my resume, I'll have different people sometimes take a glance at it and I'll get every single person will say, "Oh no, you're supposed to do this on a resume. You're supposed to do this on a resume." And really it seems like it's more of a preference thing rather than a this is what people are actually looking for.
Mhm.
but you just presented it as even like a generational thing of how people are looking for information now. So that's a really interesting thought that I never considered. I know right now there's a lot of conversation about, for a variety of reasons, right? About how broken the job market feels.
So I think what is genuinely different today is there is new technology that's kind of filtering out your
Mhm.
resumes. And I think there's a lot of like, oh, what is a applicant tracking system? It's a scary thing. And honestly, what it is it's parsing the information from your resume. It's going to then look at keywords and things like that, what you say that you do, what your roles are. And then it's going to rank you or give you a score or just list you as a applicant, for that position and kind of assist those recruiters in being able to identify who top candidates are. Sometimes there's the thought of, okay, you're automatically, rejected. That does exist, but recruiters are also looking at those. But I do question when you get that email at 2 a.m. and you're like, I know someone is not up at 2 a.m. rejecting my resume
Mhm.
right now. So there's
Mhm.
definitely, options from how you want to actually review a candidate. So I think that's one of the biggest like new things in recruitment. I think what hasn't changed is it's still very much relational. When you find someone who is actually like caring about you putting your best foot forward,
Mhm.
that's like something that is I think still consistent. It was way before we even got into technology, the way that we see it now, it's still present. I have such great conversations with individuals on like LinkedIn and stuff and see their posts of like, hey, like we want you to succeed. Here's how to succeed. Mm.
Mhm. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah, I have seen that in some they're like, "Hey, you didn't get this one, but try again." Like, just keep
Mhm.
applying to our same organization. They wanna find you and they wanna help you, but they don't really like,
Mhm.
but you still gotta go back in there and find something that aligns with you. Hopefully
Yeah.
something comes up, but they don't wanna burn the bridge either, it seems. Try to build that in such a way.
You told us a little bit about sort of what is this ATS system, and I think you even, you gave us a name for it. Most of us just say, "It's the AI. It's the
It's
AI
the
blocking us.
robots.
It's the robots. The robots are turning us down."
Yes.
But, I guess, can you help us maybe better understand what parts of our conversations about that ATS system might be accurate and which ones might be a little exaggerated? Like when we say things like, "The bots are attacking us."
Taking my
Yeah.
job.
I think at the end of the day, it's really trying to just understand the information that you're giving it, the information that the hiring managers and the company is giving it, and make the best match that it possibly can with the parameters that it has. And so I think even I am a little frustrated about like ATS and all those things because it is a black box. That's one thing that's very frustrating about it. You're like, okay, well, tell me what you're looking for, but it isn't clear. And so what's true is it's parsing your information. It's going to then classify you and kind of give you type of ranking score, something along those type of lines where it's saying, hey, you actually match this job or you don't match this job. I think that you can have all of them are a little bit different. So I am kind of speaking like very high level
Right.
because each one is prefers certain things and each one prefers a certain way of, parsing or so. But there are just standards that you can follow. So it doesn't have to be scary. You can follow a certain, pattern for your resume. When you see those things that are like, oh, my ATS score is this. That's bull crap. I'm sorry. But like, unless even when Optimized CV, we were like, well, should we give a score? And I'm like, no, because everyone is going to be completely different. Like there's certain standards, but at the end of the day, it's going to look a little bit different for one, ATS system versus another ATS system. You
Mhm.
can't just give it a top score. You can say, hey, this is meets, standards and it's ATS friendly. That's something that's completely fair. But I think that there's a lot of like misunderstanding and just kind of like individuals who haven't quite worked with it saying things about it. And so I think that that's just something that we just need to be a little bit more clear on like what actually is ATS. And I'm saying that as to the ATS companies, like
Yeah.
Mhm.
just tell us what you're looking for, and
Yeah.
we'll make sure that we work within those parameters. But it really is
Yeah.
it's kind of a gray thing right now for a lot of
Mhm.
job seekers.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Mhm.
That's really funny that you said with the ATS score, because, they do that a lot with like personality tests for work and stuff like that. And they put you into these little groups. And so, like, that ATS
Mhm.
score just makes me think, hey, we're going to, if you're
Another
between this,
personality
another
test.
personality test, only it's on your resume. You don't
Yeah.
get 100, you're actually going to get a failing grade on this one. But
Kidding.
Yeah.
it's
ATS
scary.
themselves may give a score, but I'm
Yeah.
saying like you see online and people are saying, "Oh, my resume got this from this third party, website." I'm like, okay, great. I mean, what is that going to really do for you?
Yeah.
And the actual, like, is it parsable? Is the resume parsable? That's great. Is it using keywords? That's great. Is it showing an alignment with the actual role? Good. Those are what you should be looking for, at the end of the
Did
day.
you get a job?
Did you get a job? Did you get an interview? Like, those are the type of thing I want to know. How many interviews did you get from that? That's like, those are the
Right.
important pieces.
I mean, and then there's probably hundreds of different ATS systems out there being used internationally,
Mm.
and so there's no telling like what they're doing behind the scenes. And so, well, in response to that, it seems that you've created OptimizedCV specifically with like tailoring resumes. Do you want us to tell about what got you started on that?
Yeah. So, when I was going through my own job search, so I was working with a construction tech company, and I was basically doing the like, recruitment and stuff like that. And it was interesting hearing the conversations of individuals, even from like working in construction sites all the way to working in, more corporate buildings, having the same challenges. And then I would talk to people who were around me also having the same challenges about resumes. And this is a little bit after I got my master's degree. And so I started realizing, like, when I was going through my own job search of, wait a minute, why am I spending 30 minutes, 40 minutes on one resume? Because in my learning, I'm like, okay, I know it's important to tailor my resume, but why is it taking me so much time to tailor my resume when the information is the same? I just need to make sure that certain keywords are changed or that I need
Mhm.
to highlight specific type of roles that I did. And the other part was you lose a lot of information. I don't know if you've had this. I know, Megan, you're kind of going through your own job search where you start to kind of lose track of old information from resumes that are actually applicable to today's job search. And
Mhm.
so the concept of like this master resume is really what was important to me when I was going through my own job search of I don't want to have to go and try to find I have like 2024 resumes and 2025 resumes. I'm like, why am I searching back from my 2024 resume file and then I'm searching my 2025 resume file when I could just have it all in one space and select? I can either click to select and it's easy to do that and I can create a resume in 5 minutes. We have an AI option where you are able to put in the keywords from the job description that's actually factual from what your experience was. So it's not just saying, I don't know if you put in like ChatGPT by itself and it's like, oh, well, I did this thing. And it's like, no,
Mm.
you didn't do that.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so we wanted to make sure that it's very factual, that it is true to who you are, and make it a faster process because I don't want to spend 40 minutes on one application, especially if I'm applying
Mhm.
on the company's actual site, which I would recommend that to individuals. I already know I'm going to spend 15 minutes on their application online. I already know that if they need a cover letter, like that might be a thing. Hopefully you have a drafted cover letter. But that resume should be the easiest part, and it should be based on what you've actually done, and you shouldn't have to go and try to find your experience and your impact every single time. Like that's the most important piece to me, because I think that there's other pieces that are more important. Your family, your friends, like being able to actually look for other roles. Those are things that you should be focusing on rather than having to tailor your resume every single time, and you can do that very quickly with Optimize CV.
Oh my gosh, I wanna try it
I know.
out.
I know. I'm like, okay, I know what I'm doing later. I have resume 1 or for office management stuff, resume 2 for nonprofit,
Mhm.
resume 3 for political. Like it's so annoying. Like it to the point my tragic thing that just happened to me about a week or so ago is I sent the wrong resume and then I had
Oh,
to backtrack. Thankfully, it wasn't one that I had uploaded. It was one that I emailed out. And so I was like, hey, by the way, I've updated. Here's this one. And then I actually got a call back. So I was like, okay, but those things happen, and then in
Mhm.
my head, I'm
Mhm.
like, crap, how many times did I send this one out? Was it so yeah, using a product like yours would probably definitely keep that stress away from me and I can actually sleep and not have to worry about that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, so a lot of people are, now that we know, like, okay, I have a place I can go to get resumes tailored for specific things or like easy access to that. What was brought up was like, you just need to apply to as many places as you can and
Mhm.
just hope something comes out. So, is that really best? Like, is volume an effective strategy or in this kind of market where, all these, it seems like there's millions, that's not a lot, but millions of jobs out there, but no one's hiring. So I'm like, is it really effective to just really keep applying as much as possible?
So I think that it's an interesting time for that. You see a lot of job loss in the last year. So it kind of is like a pendulum, I like to think of it, where sometimes it's the company's market and then sometimes it's the job seeker market. My theory and what I've kind of seen is, when it's the job seeker market, you have a lot more options. So when you're just applying, it's like, okay, great. Like I can probably find a job very quickly. And I've seen that and I lived that a few years ago. Right now, you're seeing a different thing where it's a lot less jobs. We're kind of in this weird situation with the companies having, money problems or budget problems and things like that.
Mhm.
But I think you can go and apply with volume. However, I think you need to be strategic still in how you're applying. Okay, so if you're just saying, oh, is volume the best and you're easy applying? I don't think easy apply really benefits you as much. It might get your resume in front of them, but so many other people are easy applying, like at the end of the day when you're strategic about the type of roles that you're interested in, so like let's say 2 or 3 type of actual roles that I'm looking for and I see one and I'm going to actually apply on their website and things like that. When you say mass apply in that regard, I think it's a little bit more intentional. It's a lot more time consuming. But it actually you're showing that hey, I'm interested in the role. Most likely someone's going to see it hopefully, compared to this just mass apply where you're getting people are talking about like 1,000 jobs that they're getting in or 600 jobs like
Mhm.
that they're seeing now or applications that they're seeing now. Like that's a wild number, but a lot of
Mhm.
individuals aren't applying on the actual website. So I think that you're at an advantage there. So when you're talking about volume, yes, it's helpful in situations like this, but it's also time consuming and it could be wasting your time if you're not focused on the right things. You could be
Mhm.
using, let's say you have 5 hours and you spend 3 hours just click, 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 apply, apply, apply. You could have been using those 3 hours for a position that you were highly qualified for, spending a little extra time on that application and actually most likely being seen by someone rather
Mhm.
than just hoping for the best. So I think that if you're not strategic about it, then it doesn't make a difference either way.
That makes
When
sense.
I found you sometimes even forget when you mass apply, unless you're really organized and have like a spreadsheet that's tracking all of these
Hmm.
places, you forget where you've applied for even. So you're like, did I already click the easy apply button here? Have I already checked out this place?
I honestly, when I was first job searching, I was doing that where I'm like, yeah, apply, apply, apply. And then I would look at LinkedIn, saved like these are jobs you applied for. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool to know that I applied to that job. I don't remember that. But then the issue with those easy apply too is you get it, let's say you get a screening call. I started saving the job description. I recommend that to anyone. But I would go and get a response and I'm like, I don't even remember what job this was. Like,
Oh, no.
and so you're going blind into a
Mhm.
interview and you don't know what the focus is because you weren't
Mm.
focusing on that job. I don't think it's as practical or as effective as being a little bit more intentional about your applications.
Absolutely. No, totally makes sense.
Yeah.
So, screening calls, the next sort of process in all of this, you have also put together and organized different interview questions
Yeah.
and hiring assessments because and I know that's really cool because I know sometimes people feel like interviews sometimes can be very subjective.
Hmm.
So what makes the interview process valid or well designed versus just a traditional or routine kind of vibe?
Yeah. So one thing that happens behind the scenes is, and it's when I say this happens, it doesn't always happen in a highly structured way, but there's this
Mhm.
thing called like a job analysis. And so you're looking at what the knowledge, skills, abilities, responsibilities are and what the most important pieces are, and being able to then assess that. So you can assess it through interview questions, you can assess it through, and that could be scored or unscored. You can assess it through actual like abilities tests or like a knowledge test, those types of things. But that is kind of when you know it's valid because you're basing it on something. So like let's say a hiring manager is like, you need to be able to have these responsibilities. Your interview question should be focused on those key responsibilities, not, something that's unrelated or a small portion of that role. Those types of questions aren't as valid because it's not going to help you determine if this person is qualified for the position. But when you're able to identify like key knowledge that they should have, skills that they should have, abilities that they should have, that's when you start to understand, oh, this is a valid question or a valid way to assess this candidate. So that's something
Mhm.
that's kind of happens behind the scenes. Those job analysis can be like an interview, it can be questionnaires, it could be like watching someone do the job. At the end of the day, those key KSAs, that knowledge, skills, and abilities, that's how you know something is valid, that it's based actually in that position and what you're actually going to be doing.
Wow.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that. I've sat in it on so many interviews on both sides,
Mhm.
or I was part of a hiring team or whatever, and it was very like, we did not have a clear structure of we would leave the interview, it would be like a group interview, and we would leave the interview, and we would all have different opinions about the candidate.
Okay.
So once we had a clearer system
Yeah.
organized where we were asking all the candidates kind of similar
Mhm.
questions, and we were able to develop more of like a ranking system, it definitely improved the hiring
And I think that makes it
process.
fair for the candidate too. And it sometimes feels a little bit less natural. So like I see individuals
Mhm.
like, hey, like I hate scored interviews. And I'm like, that actually is helping you because they're able to rank you against
Mhm.
the other person. It's a little less natural. I agree with that. But at the end of the day, an interview is a format of an assessment. And so when
Mhm.
you're able to have that structure, like you're mentioning, Maddie, it really helps you, the company, determine who the best candidate or potential candidate is for that role versus you entering the interview and then be like, hey, I liked, candidate A and I like candidate B. And I've been in those
Mhm.
conversations, but you actually have something to base your conversation on versus just subjective, oh, I think that this
Right.
person could do a good job. Like, okay, based on what the
Why?
role says and based on what they said, like, can you please go and validate
Mhm.
that? I think that
Yeah.
that's really
Yeah.
important.
Mhm.
You had mentioned earlier saving the job description. Would that be like a good vice versa?
I think before your interview, actually looking at the job description is very helpful. It's the one source of truth between you, the recruiter, and the hiring manager and the interview panel and any leadership that's going to be looking at your resume. I always think of coming in with three things, and this relates back to the job description, but understanding empathy, value, and impact, and how it relates to what they're looking for in the job description. And when you can speak to that in the interview, it actually puts you at an advantage because you now understand what their challenges are. When you talk about your impact, you now can understand how you've solved that problem and you can talk to them about that. And then when you show your value, like you have a unique experience. And so when you're speaking to the job description and like what their issues are and how you are a unique individual who can solve that in your own possible way, that someone who isn't you could not solve it in that way, that
Mhm.
Mhm.
shows that, you bring something to the table. And so I really do think saving your job description is really important, and being able to reference it before the interview will help you be more centered on what they're actually looking for.
I love how you presented it kind of in the what empathy, impact, and value.
Mm-hmm.
I think those are really vital aspects to incorporate into your knowledge about who you are as the hopefully future employee to their organization. But I think it also can help show a little bit of your personality, which is
Mm-hmm.
also what employers I think are looking for. And they just sometimes gauge it in weird ways.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. I think it's weird. I think everyone has like their own personal catalyst of like, this is who I am and this is what I bring, and take it or leave it. Mine was becoming a mom, which sounds weird, but like I think I just didn't have enough energy at when I was job searching this time, and I was like, listen, like these are my accomplishments, this is what I can do for you. But everyone has like a different type of catalyst on like what they're able to come in with confidence. And I think this relates to confidence in the regards of when you go into interview, there's like this perception of like I have to be like the strongest candidate, I have to be the candidate that you're going to choose. When you start to understand what your value is, you can be very comfortable with that and you can speak to it. So when they ask me an interview question, I'm able to then speak confidently because it's from my lived experience, not from let me remember like an actual story of this because now we're focusing on this thing. It's like, okay, you want to know about a time that I had a challenge in my life. Okay, I had a challenge in my life. Let me think about that. But like it's focused on me. It's not focused on like this false sense of who I am when I walk into that interview. I think that that's really important. And a lot of people get tripped up in that.
Yeah.
I for sure do.
Yeah.
And I think it's a perfectionist thing.
I get it.
For sure.
I get it.
For sure. So, Megan and I actually just recently chatted about something that we didn't think people talk about enough in the job searching aspect of all of this. And that's the sort of the psychological impact of a long job search, or really just job searching in general. So from your perspective, what are some things that people can do to keep themselves, I guess, rooted and psychologically safe during a long job search?
Yeah, that was like a hard one because like with IO psychology, you're not like a clinical psychologist, but I think that there's still this idea of belonging, something that we talk about in IO psychology, and understanding like the importance of belonging. And so when you're not able to get that, I think there's a lot that naturally comes from a job, even if you don't enjoy where you're working or so, you still have kind of a community in an odd sense. You're still around people on a regular day. And so when you aren't in that, it's kind of like you're on a little island, because even if there's other even if there's other individuals who are job searching, they're on their own little island. That sounds weird, but like you aren't, like we both could be in the same positions, but like your path is going to be different than my path.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so you're kind of still alone in that. So I think that really engaging with your sense of community in developing whatever that is. For me, it's my family, it's my friends, previous coworkers who may have gone through a similar situation as me. Those are individuals that I can kind of talk to about my issues. If you have a different community in this different way, just being able to connect with people, I think is really important in that time. Because when you aren't, it's really easy for you to start questioning, like, who am I? What do I do? What am I good at? And, like when you start seeing things like rejection letters come through and getting ghosted by employers and things like that, it's really easy to internalize that. But when you have people around you that are, supporting you and speaking life into you, it helps you understand and stand on like, this is who I am. This is what I actually bring. And you come in a little bit more confident in your job search too. But it's really hard because, when you have that prolonged job search, there's a lot of questions and there's uncertainty. I don't want to glaze over that, but I think that that's really important to be connected with people who you trust and be able to actually speak about that, because when you aren't able to, it's very easy to get in your head.
Yeah. That's why we're here to support.
Yes. No, I think you have hit all the things that Megan and I have also emphasized, in that having that community around you is so important, because the job search, sometimes it can be an exciting time because you find exciting opportunities, and sometimes it can be a fresh start for things. But we know right now a lot of people have gone through a layoff.
Yeah.
So they're battling that psychological shift. And then they're also getting perhaps those constant rejection things. And so it's hard not to internalize that. So it was nice to have perspective that also was reiterating, have your people around you, because that's also going to boost your confidence when you do go into the interviews. We've had such a great chat with you. If someone listening is job searching right now, what are 3 things that you would recommend that they start doing differently this week?
Yeah. So if you're not getting interviews, look at the resume, look at the structure, ask, is this important? Like, why does this matter? Is the question that I ask when I'm looking at bullet points on my resume, if it's not important and if it doesn't speak to the actual roles that you're looking at, I just remove it and I replace it with something that speaks more to it. That's really important to me. Two is in the interviews, if you're having trouble kind of moving to the next stage, really listen to what the hiring manager is asking. And making sure that you're actually speaking to every single piece. That's where a lot of people, I think, miss at the end of the day. You know, it's easy to kind of get in your head and start thinking about the question and kind of start thinking about your answer to the question versus kind of listening to every single word. It slows you down a little bit and it helps you kind of regulate. In my opinion, that's kind of what my strategy is. And so I'm able to then have like, okay, actually have a response to that versus, and it's okay to pause, but when you start kind of thinking while they're talking, you miss some of those key details in those questions. And so that can actually hurt you in the long run when you're kind of when they're comparing you to another, candidate. The third one is go in with yourself. Like everyone has value. Be confident in it. I think in the job search, especially long ones like we were talking about, it's really easy to start questioning like, okay, what am I good at? What do I bring? And so if you're having a challenge with that, I think of thinking of it in layers. So one quick thing that I do is I look at the layers. So I look at my individual, that's the role, what my responsibilities were, teams, that's like the team that I worked with, anyone who might have been a direct report, the organizational level, and then external stakeholders. And so I start asking, what did I do to impact each of these layers? And so that kind of helps you start thinking about answers to questions that the hiring managers might have. It starts helping you kind of determine what's important to put on your resume and just understanding like, okay, what did I do to impact these different layers? And then the second question is, why did it matter? And I think that when you start thinking of it that way in your job search, you're able to have a stronger resume and a stronger interview answers. And so it's a cheat for my third one, but that's kind of like what my suggestion is, like understanding what your impact was on each layer of an organization or, whatever systems that you work on.
Amazing. And I have a fourth one.
Yeah.
Go to OptimizedCV.
Yes. I didn't pay anyone to say that, okay?
Yeah. So, Taylor, where can people find you online to connect with you or even learn more about any of the fabulous resources that you shared with us today?
Yeah, so I post regularly on LinkedIn. My name is Taylor Elder. It's how it sounds. So pretty easy to find me. And then www.optimizedcv.ai, that's our website. It's free to have a master resume, so you don't have to pay anything for that. I think it's really important for people to just have access to a resource that helps them in their job. You get 3 free downloads as well, but really that master resume, that's where you can kind of find some of those resources. And we also post about our blogs and things like that on our website too.
Amazing.
I love that. So great. Yes. And listeners, we'll be sure to tag Taylor on social media so that way you can easily find her and connect with her so that you can continue to get some tips on how to navigate this job search marathon that we are all in.
It is a marathon, not a sprint. Yep. I'm so glad that we connected. We've been searching for someone to talk about this topic for so long, and you were a perfect fit. And I'm so glad we had you on because you gave a lot of excellent advice.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. It was great talking with you both, and I love the conversations. I'm looking forward. I already plan on, I don't know if I already clicked follow, but I have my podcast, so I'm just adding you to my rotation at this point. So you got a fan in me.
Yes, absolutely.
Got it down. Maddie, it worked.
Yes. No, thank you so much. It was a really great conversation, and we look forward to connecting with you more in the future.
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Bye. Megan, this was such a great chat. I'm so glad that Taylor was able to join us. Her insights were so wonderful.
Thank goodness. I am for sure going to be using her advice moving forward.
Unfortunately, I am all out of coffee for today.
Me too.
So that is our cue to wrap up. Thank you all for joining us, and be sure to subscribe if you have not already.
Yes. And be sure you're connected with us on all our socials and continue the conversation. We would love to hear your questions and have your experience navigating with the workplace.
We love social media, you guys. So you can find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Threads, and Patreon. And then, of course, always be sure to check out that show on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple. We hope that you will, of course, continue listening to Not a Lonely Coffee Break. Again, we are your hosts. I'm Maddie.
And I'm Megan.
Cheers,
Cheers,
queer.
queer.